Here's the trade that I took today. We had news this morning, and so I knew I definitely want to trade after that core CPI news. As you can see, we did get a big spike up on that 8:30 candle. You see that long wick, and it actually took out that buy side liquidity level that I outlined, and you'll see it as the green line on the chart. This is why you do not trade red folder news. You definitely do not trade red folder news. So let's get into marking up the chart a little bit. I identified a fair value gap on the 5-minute chart, and so I am going to outline that. I am changing the color to my typical yellow. That helps me to know what's happening on the chart at a glance. And I also like to add in my labels just to keep things nice and neat, and also for consistency purposes. I am a person that believes in routine, and so I am always marking up my chart. Now, when I'm trading, sometimes I will get into a trade and I can just see the levels or the fair value gaps, and I'm able to just view it without marking it up. And so after the trade, sometimes I will go back in and add in those levels. So here is the execution. Here we're on the 15-minute chart, and you can see that big red box, which is a 15-minute bearish breaker. And you can see at 8:30 when that red folder news drop, price spiked up, took out that buy side liquidity, and then returned down and started moving into that yellow fair value gap area that I identified. The chart is getting a little bit too busy, so I'm just going to remove those. So here is the fair value gap that I identified on the 60-minute chart. You can see that big block there. I'm not sure when price will come into this area and fill this gap. Maybe after the 9:30 open or the 10:30 sell down, or even in the afternoon. But I do think we will fill that gap today. But guess what? I won't be trading it. I am done for the day. I have completed my trading. So here is another buy side liquidity level, and I am on the 60-minute chart. And so what I look for are these high points, and I will draw a line and outline them. Usually if I'm doing buy side liquidity, I will label it with a green line. And if I'm doing sell side liquidity, I will label it with a red line. And that just helps me to keep things nice and easy visually. When I'm trading, I want to make sure that I am focused on that one particular trade, my entry and my execution, as well as any risks that I potentially see. So here I am labeling that buy side liquidity, the first level and the second level. That first level was taking out, so I believe once price takes out one level of buy side liquidity, it will often reverse and take out a level of sell side liquidity, only to go back up and continue. So in my thoughts, price has to come down before it can go back up. So here you can see both levels of buy side liquidity. You can see that red box also of the 15-minute bearish breaker, and you can see it with that big red candle right there. Because there is only a wick that went through that block, you don't have a closure below. I believe that this bearish breaker is still active and that price will push down, and you can see that yellow box below. I believe that's a pull on liquidity. Price wants to come here to this 60-minute fair value gap. So I do think that can potentially be a good play for later in the day. So we'll just have to watch and see what happens with that regard. And so here you can see that potentially is a level for sell side liquidity. All of those areas where you can see my cursor. In order for me to be a believer that price wants to come down now, I would need price to come down and close below one of those levels. Until then, I just wouldn't trade it. Here you can see that it was just a wick that filled that fair value gap, that 5-minute one. And because of the time of day, we just had news. We have not gotten into the opening bell volatility. And so to me, price is just a little bit indecisive here. And I don't think there would be a trade to be had. I'm glad that I did take the trade I took and was able to grab the points that I needed for the day. But it is important to figure out what's most important for your trade setup and stick to that. So here are the executions again of the trade that I took. Let me zoom in so you can get a better shot. So here you can see that execution. 10 before 10,